Good day. My name is Hussein.
Hi, friends. My name is Hassan.
Welcome back to the Achilles podcast. And if you are new to our podcast, it's about different cities and cultures from all over the world.
And in this episode, we will talk about Tasmania. It's an island state of Australia. The guest is our friend Chris. Please enjoy.
Hi, Chris. How are you doing?
Hey, how's it going? I'm really good. How are you guys?
Good. Yes, we're doing well. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Do you say like howdy to each other?
Yeah, can do. Howdy. It's kind of formal, kind of informal, kind of a joke. Like we wouldn't say it normally. It's kind of like with friends. If you kind of, oh, howdy, how's it going?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a little kind of like a joke way to say hello, I suppose.
Oh, so it's hello and how are you together, right?
Yeah, so like the Australian way, the very Australian way is like, how are ya? So ya rather than you. So how are ya? And it kind of all blends
Oh,
into one.
wow.
Yeah, instead of how are you and
Uh-huh.
nice clear words, it all gets rolled into one big word like how are ya?
Yeah. Uh-huh. Wow. And what's the response? What can you say?
A lot of people would just say, yeah, not bad, or yeah, all right, how are you? It's just like one of those things that people ask how other people are, but we don't really mean it. We're not actually being, oh, actually, thanks for asking how I am. Oh, I've got a problem with paying my rent at the moment. It's just like, how are you? Not bad. How are you? Yeah, good. Yeah, it's just instead of saying hello, hello. Yeah.
Ah, I see.
Now you know. So when you come to Australia and people are always asking you how you are, that they're not normally really caring how you are. It's just a way of greeting you.
Yeah, the same in Tajikistan. We say like, how are you? How are your kids? Your family? But we don't really listen to each other. We just the main reason is just to ask, just to be polite.
Yeah, exactly the same. Yep.
Yes. Okay, Chris, could you talk a little bit about yourself? Introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, sure. It's always a tough question. It's like a job interview. Like, tell me about yourself. Um, well, I'll try and keep it short and interesting. So I suppose my story is I was always a very hardworking student and was always very career oriented. So I wanted to be a lawyer since I was about 12 years of age. Worked really hard at school. Went to uni, studied law.
Mm-hmm.
But there'd always been a part of me that was fascinated by travel. So I kind of, while I was at university working really hard, I was often thinking to myself, I can't wait until I finish and then I'll be able to spend some time traveling. And the more I studied, the more that dream grew. And I thought I'd love to travel for maybe a year or maybe 2 years. And by the end of my 5-year degree, I thought, I'm not going to put a time limit on how long I'm going to travel. I'll just travel. So then after I graduated, I started traveling and I traveled in Asia for about a year, I suppose, before I ended up in China, where I worked as an English teacher for a year and a half. And that's where I met you guys. And then after that, I traveled for another year or so before I had to come home because of coronavirus. So it was about 3.5 years in total that I was away from my home country of Australia. And yeah, as I say, now I'm back because of coronavirus and I'm just waiting until I can start traveling again. And yeah, I suppose that's my story in a nutshell, that I was someone who was always going to live a very normal life. And then somehow I've ended up living a very unusual life where I think I'll spend a lot of my life traveling and away from home.
Wow. Yeah. You are one of the people who inspired us to travel after China. So yeah, you told us that you had a plan to travel. So we also had this plan in the back of our mind.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, well,
it's
I think a lot of people are like that. A lot of people have plans and dreams and goals, and they're often just kind of left to just be dreams, and they never become reality. And I think, so you meet some people who are doing what you want to do, and then you realize, oh, actually I can do it too. And I've had those experiences time and time again, that I've met other travelers or other people who have given me confidence or inspiration. Just not so much that I can do it, like in terms of the difficulty, but more in terms of the lifestyle decision, and being like, it is okay to not work in an office from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock, Monday to Friday. It is okay to do other things with your life. So I think that's what's great about traveling, that you meet other people who give you that confidence and support to follow your dreams.
Yeah. And to show that this is something possible. It's not something unreal.
Yeah, very real.
Yeah, definitely. There's so many things that make it seem so impossible, and it's such a common question that I get asked is, how can you do it financially? Or aren't you worried about your career? Like, these are really common questions, and obviously really common fears that a lot of people have, and they're totally understandable. And I think it's only when you start doing it yourself, or when you have a conversation with someone who's already doing it, that you realize what's possible. So I hope that whoever listens to this gets that kind of a benefit from it, if someone is wanting to travel, or whatever their dream is that seems a little bit unattainable and unrealistic, that they realize actually it is possible, just like you guys have realized.
Yeah.
Okay, and what is the common way of greeting people? So you told us that what to say, how to respond. What about shaking hands, or do you hug each other, friends? I mean, when you meet each other.
Yeah, well, I suppose things are a little bit different because we're in the middle of a pandemic, that the handshake has kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
I think the most you'd get now is a fist bump, or probably elbow bump. But we certainly don't have that European or Middle Eastern way of men greeting each other by kissing on the cheek. That certainly doesn't happen in Australia. Normally, if we weren't in the middle of a pandemic, it would be a handshake, especially between men. And otherwise it's just words. So like the one I said before about how are you, or the other really iconic classic Australian one is g'day, which I don't know if you guys have heard of.
G'day?
Have you heard of g'day?
Oh, yeah. I've heard before.
Yeah. So that's just like good day, but then Australians are really lazy in a lot of ways, including the way we speak English. So good day just becomes g'day, just the G and the day, g'day.
Wow.
So I think that's how we greet each other. Pretty simple, not that exciting. No hugs or kisses, really.
What does it mean to be polite in your culture?
I think asking about other people rather than talking about yourself. So if you start a conversation and only talk about yourself, like I'm doing right at the moment, this is obviously not a normal conversation. This is kind of more of an interview, I suppose. But
yes,
if you were to do what I'm doing right now and just talk about yourself and not ask any questions, then that would be considered pretty rude. Yeah, that's probably the main one that I think of. Well, and the other one in Australia is, even if you're telling the truth, if you're being immodest or boastful, then that's also really rude. So if you've achieved something really amazing, like say you got the top score on your test in the class, and you told people, hey, I got the top score, that's not untrue, that is true, but it would be considered pretty rude in Australia. Like, it's always better to be self-deprecating and make jokes about yourself rather than talk about your achievements. So I think it's really important to be humble and modest in Australian culture rather than talk about how amazing you are, again, which is not what I'm doing, but just ignore this as an example.
This is good. I've heard about the similar thing in
Sweden.
They call it a lagom, right?
Yeah.
So it's basically the same thing. It's to be humble, not to show off.
Yeah, oh, it totally is. It totally the same. Yep, and I'm sure it's similar for a lot of cultures, but yeah, it's definitely true in Australia as well.
Let's talk about Tasmania. And
Sure.
what does it mean, Tasmania? It has a very interesting name.
Tasmania. Well, yeah, you're going to test my Tasmanian history knowledge. I think the name comes from Abel Tasman, who was who was a Dutch. No, not sure if he's Dutch. Some explorer. He might have been Dutch. An explorer who, again, didn't discover Tasmania, but was one of the first to discover Tasmania. So the name comes from his last name, Tasman, and then it somehow became Tasmania. But yeah, I should know this as a Tasmanian, but I just don't. I think a lot of people don't know the history or the culture of the places that they live. But yeah, something to do with a guy called Abel Tasman anyway.
Yeah. And do you call yourself like Tasmanian or Australian?
Depends on the
People ask you
context.
where you're from.
Yeah, it depends on the context. So if I'm in a hostel in Japan, then yeah, I'm certainly Australian. But if I'm somewhere in Australia and, like I'm in Bondi or Sydney, then where are you
Yeah.
from? I'm from Tasmania. So yeah, depends, I guess.
Oh, I see. So the further you are, the more you need to use, I think, Australia because people are not maybe familiar with Tasmania.
Yeah, well, definitely, because sometimes when people ask where I'm from, I'll say Australia, and they'll say, "Oh, which part of Tasmania? Which part of Australia are you from? Melbourne or Sydney?" And I'll say, "No, I'm from Tasmania," and they'll go, "Oh, Tasmania. I thought that was in Africa," because a lot of people
Tanzania.
think Tanzania.
Ah,
So
yeah.
I get that. Yeah, a lot of people when I tell them that I'm from Tasmania are like, "Oh, you don't look African." I'm like, I'm not from Africa. So yeah, that's why I just stick with Australia, so people know where the hell I'm from.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And Tajikistan is a very small country, but even here, people
Yeah.
in north and in the south, they are different. What about Australia and Tasmania? Are you different? I mean, what is the difference between you?
Well, I think very little. Like if you ask people from mainland Australia about Tasmania, they would certainly have an answer for this because Tasmania, because it's so small, such a small island with a small population, there's a lot of jokes about people from Tasmania being married to their cousins and having second heads because of birth defects from
Wow.
inbreeding. But I think the real answer is not. There's not a lot of difference because English speaking Australia is such a young country, only 200 years. So we don't have the long traditions and history and culture of, say, in England or China, where people grew up in different parts of the country and they developed their own little cultures. Because English-speaking Australia is so young, we've all kind of grown up together and, being able to communicate. So there's no difference in accent or language or food or anything like that. It's all really similar, no matter which part of Australia you're from. There are some really, really small differences, but nothing big or nothing that interesting.
Okay. What might surprise foreigners if they visit your hometown?
Well, I suppose like people's kind of traditional view of Australia is it's really hot, everyone surfs, and there's lots of koalas and kangaroos everywhere. So based on that, I think people would be surprised with Tasmania because it is so far south that the weather isn't that warm. I mean, it's okay at times, but like a Tasmanian winter is pretty cold. So I think, just the weather difference might shock people because it's not what you would see on TV.
Yeah. So now it's summer, right?
Yeah, so it's summer at the moment. The weather's okay. It's kind of like 15, 20 degrees at the moment. And, like a hot day in summer is 25. But yeah, come winter time, like 5, 10 degrees or even, 0 is not uncommon.
So do you have snow?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. So if I look out my window at the moment, I can see a mountain called Mount Wellington, which has snow on it most of the year. And yeah, so it's like a 15-minute drive from the centre of Hobart to get to the top of the mountain and enjoy some snow. So again, maybe that's something. When people think of Australia, they think of hot beaches, which we certainly have, but you probably wouldn't think of a snowy mountain in summer.
If you could choose 3 aspects of your culture to put in a time box for the future, what would you put in it? 3 things for the future.
Well, I think Tasmania is kind of in its own little culture time box anyway, because when I came back to Tasmania after 3.5 years away, I was like, it was a strange feeling to come back home after such a long time away, because I thought so many things have happened. I've met so many people and been to so many places. What's it going to be like to come home? And when I came home, I was like, oh, I didn't have to worry. Nothing has changed. It's like exactly the same as I remember it. So I think that's what I like, and that's what I would put in the box, is the fact that Tasmania doesn't change too much. I like that we have a really relaxed culture. So if you went to Melbourne or Sydney, and people work really hard and work long hours, whereas Tasmania is certainly a lot more of a relaxed lifestyle. Like, it's not to say people don't work, because of course they do, but I feel like there's a better work-life balance here, that people spend more time outdoor, in nature, hiking, and those kind of things. So I think that's what I'd put. Those are the two things I'd put in the box, like the fact that it doesn't change, the relaxed way of life, and then things like our markets. Like, we have a few like farmers markets and other markets, and we've kind of got a growing artistic culture, like some art festivals and things. So I guess those small kind of festivals that are growing in popularity, I think they're the kind of things that I would hope to find kind of 10 or 20 years from now.
Yeah.
Kind of that small island lifestyle, I suppose. Even though it's not that small, it's like Tasmania is like the size of South Korea, so it's like a big island, but kind of like a small island culture.
And what about the food?
Yeah, the thing about Australian food in general is we don't really have our own. We don't have our own unique identity, really, because we have British heritage, because that was the beginning of English-speaking white Australia is England. So we have some English food, which is not that great as far as I'm concerned. The rest of it is all like immigrant food. So we're an immigrant country, so we have a lot of people from all over the world, and they've brought their food with them. So yeah, a typical Australian dinner or lunch at a restaurant is like so diverse. It's like Vietnamese or Japanese or Chinese or I don't know, could be anything. It's just so wide ranging. So yeah, like Australian food is probably like the classic Australian food is just a barbecue or seafood or something, but we don't really have our own unique dishes. And that's something that a lot of people found really surprising. Like when I was in China, a lot of people would ask me, Chinese people would ask me, oh, can you get me some Australian food? And I'll be like, what Australian food do you want? And they're like, oh, I don't know, what's the best stuff? And I'm like, we don't really have anything. And then like a lot of people wouldn't believe me, and I would do some research and be like, okay, I'd find a list of like the 100 best Australian dishes, and on one of these particular lists it said the number 1 Australian food was a Thai green curry pie. I'm like, it's got the word Thai in there. It's like it's a Thailand curry, but it's been put into a pie, so now it's Australian. So yeah, don't get me wrong, we've got lots of good food, but it wasn't invented in Australia. It was kind of brought here.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's interesting, because in Tajikistan we have only Tajik food. Yeah, we would love to have
very different.
Things, yeah.
So what's some of the best food from Tajikistan?
It's definitely
Osh.
osh. We call it osh, but it's known as pilaf. So it's fried rice with some vegetables.
I know pilaf.
Oh, you know. How?
Yeah, I know it. Yeah. So that's what I mean. Like my mum cooks that. So like that just kind of shows you
How do you cook
multicultural Australian food is. Like, yeah.
With a lot of oil?
Well, you have to ask my mum, but it's like I think it's like a little bit of oil, but I think it's mostly water, and it's like you put the rice into the water, and then put the lid on it, and then let it heat on the stove.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it's kind of like a risotto, yeah. We have it with cauliflower and
Uh,
chickpeas.
wow.
And you
Yeah,
also call it pilaf?
yeah.
Wow.
Wow. I never thought. Could you send the picture later, please? We'll send you ours. We can compare
Yeah, will
later.
do. Yeah, absolutely. I'll sort that out.
Yeah, this is the meal that we are proud the most. So every time we have a guest, we cook that meal. So we don't let them go until they have it. So yeah,
It's not only Tajik, it's
it's Central
Fantastic.
Asia,
yeah,
huh?
Central Asia,
Uzbekistan,
Uzbekistan,
maybe.
Kyrgyzstan.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So is it usually served with meat? Because
Yes.
we have we do a vegan version. Is that, yeah, it's okay. I assume so, yeah.
Yeah. We no in
You guys,
Tajikistan.
when I visit you guys, you have to do a vegetable one for me.
Sure. We if it's vegan, we put there like egg or sometimes
Garlic, and
bihi.
bihi.
I, bihi. I don't know how to say that in English. So it's like an apple. So we also put it
There's
and
probably not an English word for it.
maybe so and garlic. So but Tajiks we can't imagine pilaf without meat. Yeah. So it's something that should be there.
Yeah. That doesn't surprise me at all.
But for you, we can make one. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, that would be the most surprising thing for me if I would go there and saw the pilaf in Australia. Wow.
Well, certainly in my house, if my mum's cooking.
Yes. Okay. So, what culture besides your own do you admire and why?
I love like Asian culture in general. So, there's a lot of similarities between different countries in Asia, and I think the part of it that I really admire and respect is how they treat and look after and respect the older generation. So in a lot of Asian countries, and I've got more experience with China, the grandparents will actually live with the family. So maybe similar to you guys that you mentioned before we started recording.
Yeah.
So the grandparents have a really important role to play in the family. So they will often be involved in looking after the children, picking them up from school, and doing those kind of things while the parents are at work. Whereas in Western culture, when you get to a certain age, kind of grandparents or older people are kind of discarded a little bit and being like, okay, you guys aren't really that useful to us anymore. So you can spend the rest of your life in a retirement home or an aged care facility. So yeah, I think that's one part that I really like. And yeah, just kind of working as a group and as a team rather than individuals. I mean, obviously there are a lot of negatives associated with that and it's something that I've talked to a lot of people who live in Asia about, that they feel a lot of pressure from their families to behave in a certain way or to meet family expectations with, be it career or relationships, those kind of things. But yeah, one advantage is that you are kind of all in it together, all helping one another. Even if you're really old, which I really like.
Yeah.
If a group of people just came to your hometown from overseas, what advice would you give them in terms of the place to go or to be careful of something?
Oh, okay. So in terms of places to go, like one really good resource is there's a Instagram page called Discover Tasmania. It's like the official Tasmanian tourism account. So it's really good. Like it's something that even I would use as a local to discover new places in Tasmania, because it's, being Instagram, it's generated by people who are living here or traveling here. So they will post things, and if they find something cool, then this official Instagram page will repost it. So that's something that I would look at, and then obviously you can kind of flick through and be like, oh, that looks good, that looks interesting. But like the classic, most famous ones that everyone should probably do, because I'm guessing if you're coming to Tasmania, you're interested in nature and the wilderness. So, and that's what Tasmania, as I said, that's what Tasmania is famous for. So basically the east coast of Tasmania is probably the most beautiful. So if you only have a couple of weeks, that's what I'd recommend. So these names probably won't mean anything to most people, but the places I'd recommend are the Bay of Fires, Wineglass Bay, Cradle Mountain, Freycinet, Bruny Island, Maria Island, and all of those places along the east coast. So beautiful beaches and walks and those kind of things. So yeah, that's definitely what I'd recommend in terms of places to go. In terms of things to worry about, I'm not sure there's a lot. Tasmania is a really safe place. I think it'd be more in terms of transport because, I mean, it's not huge. So if you're relying on public transport, you may have some challenges, like in terms of, if you want a bus to come every 5 minutes, then yeah, you need to be in Melbourne or Sydney. So I think just planning your trips around that. So it might be worth hiring a car if you want to do these kind of road trips along the east coast of Tasmania, or obviously you can hitchhike as well. But yeah, I think just keeping in mind that you're not in a big city, so like unless you're in Hobart. So yeah, I think transport is something that you'd probably need to research to get around Tassie.
Yeah.
And what about wild animals?
Oh yeah, okay.
Of course, in the city centers, it's safe, but
Yeah. So again, this is another classic thing that I would get asked a lot as an Australian overseas about, how many people do I know have been killed and that kind of thing. It is obviously really rare that someone gets attacked by some dangerous animal, but that's not to say we don't have them. But yeah, I think, as you said, if you're in any kind of urban environment, you're not going to find snakes and dangerous things. It's only if you're out in the bush that you could encounter them. And yeah, even then, I really honestly don't think it's an issue. Like I would not be worried about. I'm never worried about going there, and that's not because I'm Australian. It's just because I just don't think it's that common. Or, I've obviously seen snakes and dangerous snakes, but they don't want to get in. They don't really want to get into a fight with you and bite you. They if they see you or sense you, they will definitely move away. So, I mean, obviously it's good to have a first aid kit with you or that kind of thing, and make sure that you know the local emergency number, which in Australia is 000. But yeah, it's really not something that people should worry about because it just doesn't happen. So, there are some people who are killed by sharks, some people who are killed by snakes. That does happen, but it is so rare. So just not something worth worrying about, really.
Yeah. Gotcha. When is the best time to visit your hometown in terms of the weather, holidays?
Okay, so yeah, as I said, Tasmania's pretty cold most of the year. So for that reason, I'd say summer. If you want to enjoy bushwalking and be outdoors, which is definitely why I would be coming to Tasmania as a tourist, you'd want nice weather. So summer for that reason. But if you are wanting to come to Tasmania for like the snow, or there's a winter festival called Mofo and Mona. Those winter festivals are really cool and they run for about 2 weeks, then winter. So it depends what you're into, but if you're into outdoor stuff, then summer. And if you're into the snow or winter festivals and artistic festivals, then winter.
I see. So summer, it's December, January, and February.
That's right. Yeah. So the opposite from the Northern Hemisphere. So then our winter is June, July, August.
Yeah. I just imagined in my mind, because here this is summer, June, July, August. So people were planning their trip, and after they arrive, they realize that it's winter now.
So December, January, February, summer. That's probably the best time for most people to come to Tasmania, unless you're specifically interested in seeing some snow or going to one of these art festivals or winter festivals.
I
So
see.
you also have spring and autumn, right?
Yeah, we do. So I mean, that's kind of like
You have the
in
seasons.
between. Yep, yep. So the four seasons.
Okay, one more question. Is that true that Tasmania serving as Australia's chief sea link to Antarctica?
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know too much about it. But in so Hobart, just to explain, Hobart is like a city on a river which is connected to the ocean. So it's like a wharf city. So we have lots of boats and things that come in. So we have big cruise ships, and we also have the Antarctic boats that leave from Hobart. So there's a big one called the Aurora Australis. So you'll sometimes see that docked in the wharf at Hobart. Yeah, so the boats leave from there, and we have big cruise ships and things that come into the city as well. But yeah, I'd love to go to Antarctica, but I don't think they're allowing just kind of regular people to go. You've got to be a scientist to get on one of those boats to go to Antarctica, unfortunately.
Yeah. We've talked to our friend last week about this Antarctica, and she said that she booked her tour 1 year in advance. So there's a lot of people who want to go there
Did she go from Hobart or from South America?
from South America, Ushuaia,
Yeah,
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 Argentina.
yeah, yeah. So it might be possible to go from Hobart. I've never heard of that, so I'm assuming it's not possible. I've only ever heard about being able to go there from South America. Yeah, and I've also read, because it's a place I want to travel to someday. I have read about people trying to get cheaper deals by booking at the last minute, like kind of waiting until a boat's about to leave and then hoping there's a space free and then kind of getting on. It's obviously a riskier strategy. So, yeah, it means that you need to have more time and be prepared to not go. But yeah, that's another
Yeah.
strategy I've heard of kind of backpackers doing to be able to get on a boat and not pay as much.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, because it's so expensive.
Yeah, quite expensive.
Yeah.
Okay, we covered some questions, but some of our listeners might have another questions. How people can find you?
So yeah, if you want to find me, I have an Instagram, which is Chris_Pedder, where I post very infrequently. I'm trying to get into a better habit of actually posting all of my travel photos. I just love taking photos and I don't love posting them on social media, but I have posted some. So yeah, if anyone wanted to talk to me, or that's probably the place to find me, on Instagram.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. You have some really nice pictures. I remember the one you took in Japan.
Was it Japan or China?
No, I think it was Japan. On the
Black
on
and
your
white?
desktop.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. Was that a mountain photo or like
Yeah,
a
that
people
was so
photo?
good.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
No people. I think that there was a tree,
Yeah.
colorful, all lamps.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
I know what you mean.
nice.
Yeah. The red lanterns in China. Yeah. Sorry, I totally forgot about that
Yeah.
photo. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I love photography. Yeah, so that's nice of you guys to say. But yeah, as I said, I'm just such a lazy poster and editor of photos. I just love the actual process of taking them more so than doing anything with them afterwards. But yeah, maybe someday I'll organize myself and print some out or post them where people can actually look at them.
Is there anything else you would like to add?
I think the only thing I want to add is I want to apologise on behalf of the other Tasmanians, because I'm such a bad ambassador for Tasmania, because like a lot of travellers, I think
No, come on.
I think like a lot of travellers,
Don't worry.
I don't bring that travelling mindset back to my home. So I think when I'm travelling in another country, I'm finding things that locals don't know about. But then the same is true when I come back to Hobart. I'm like back into a routine. I'm going to work every day. Come the weekend, I'm kind of just doing what I normally do, and I'm not really exploring and finding things. So I think sometimes it's good to ask locals for tips on on their hometowns and where they live, but it's also sometimes travelers know a lot more because they kind of have a traveling attitude to these things. So yeah, hopefully for anyone coming to Tasmania, that's kind of a useful starting point. But I think one of the best sources of information is when you meet other travelers on the road. So if you're staying at a hostel, is just to talk to other travelers about where they're going or where they've been and get information that way. So yeah, that's what I'd recommend in general, and also if you ever come to Tasmania or Australia.
Yeah, that's a nice advice.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Chris, for taking the time.
No, my pleasure.
It was interesting and fun.
Yeah, likewise. Absolutely, my pleasure. Good to talk to you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again for listening to our podcast. If you have any questions or comments, you can send us an email at dearchillers@gmail.com. And you can listen to our podcast on your favorite podcast app, Spotify, Apple, or Google Podcast. Until next time, goodbye.